3 years ago, Fortnite was a completely different game. I mean, a lot has changed since. But there's at least one thing in common, and that's that everybody won't freaking shut up about cubes flopping around the map. But after all of this time, the cubes seem to have taken on lives of their own and changed the story into something no one would have expected. Now the cubes are waging war against the island, and with the Cube Queen finally revealed, this time we look back at how all of this really started and how all of it will unfold. And that's where this story begins in 2018. Now it's hard to pinpoint exactly where this cube originally came from, but our first experience with it was the huge giant rift in the sky that was created by the Season 4 rocket event. It was sending weird lightning strikes out for a few weeks and nothing came of it, until one day lightning stronger than any of the ones before it struck Paradise Bombs and formed one of the most mysterious characters in Fortnite history. It was a gigantic purple cube that would ricochet bullets and throw people that touched it miles away. So the fans nicknamed this guy Kevin and followed him very closely as he began to roll around the island. He moved in a random direction around the map, stopping occasionally to stamp mysterious runes onto the ground that would actually give us an anti-gravity field. He left exactly 7 runes on the ground before eventually reaching his destination, Loot Lake. And we were all a bit puzzled at the time for why Kevin decided to go to Loot Lake of all places. But then he sank into the water and dissolved into the lake, turning it fully purple and bouncy. And that was it. Kevin's journey was supposedly over. Well, that's until Season 6 premiered. And Fortnite themed the entire season around the cube. It opened with Darkness Rises, and we watched as Kevin emerged from Leaky Lake carrying the island with him. Throughout the season, this floating island moved all around the island and absorbed power from all of the runes he left in Season 5. Kevin would get bigger with every rune he absorbed. But all good things must come to an end, as once all the runes have been dealt with, Kevin headed straight for his original location, Loot Lake. He used the power he had absorbed to create a portal inside of a whirlpool. He then leaked some of his energy into the whirlpool, and it kept dripping faster and faster until there was almost nothing left of Kevin. Once it looked like he had run out of energy, this triggered a live event, and it was one of the most memorable moments in all of Chapter 1. Yeah, Kevin literally started spinning super quickly and then exploded. I mean, he blew up so hard that it sent all of us into some weird butterfly dimension. And we still don't know what this place is over 3 years later. Now, once we returned from this dimension, no trace of Kevin was left behind. All that remained was a few rocks where the whirlpool used to be, and this was considered the last time that we would ever see Kevin. Except, well, it wasn't. The next time we spot the cube was in Season 7 when the Ice King was trapped in a floating orb. People who got close enough to the Ice King in replay mode could actually see that he was doing more than just sitting there. He was shockingly holding a cube. Now let me tell you, we have no idea how he got this, but he used it to cover the entire island in snow, and it was crazy. But unfortunately, we didn't see anything else of the cube for 3 more seasons. Now luckily, Epic wasn't done with him yet. It was now Season X, the final season of Chapter 1, and the theme of the season was that all of the old moments in Chapter 1 were appearing on the island through time travel. Of course, one of those things was Kevin the Cube. He had been placed on the island and continued his path like nothing happened. Although, he didn't activate any runes this time. He just began floating around. Well, it didn't really matter what his purpose was because this was Kevin himself, the same one from Season 4, just brought forward in time. And on the final day of Chapter 1, the cube was back in its original spot just in time for the end event, and then darkness. It was now Chapter 2 Season 1, and everything we ever knew was reset. The map was completely redesigned, there were dozens of new POIs, new guns, and it felt like an entirely new game. But what was really interesting was a new POI called Steamy Stacks. When you went there, you could actually find that this power plant was owned by a company named Kevolution Energy. And at the time, it just seemed like a really cool Easter egg and a homage to Kevin after all he had been through. And we just accepted that fact. I mean, yeah, the reactor was literally purple, but there was nothing more to it, right? And that's when we heard absolutely nothing about the cube for the next 2 years. 6 entire seasons of Fortnite passed, and Kevin quickly became an old friend from the past that we all had to move on from. It was a nice relaxing period with all kinds of different stories. I mean, we had spy thrillers, a fight against bounty hunters, a flooded map. I mean, it was crazy. But we were all so distracted by these constant live events and season themes that everyone ignored the obvious hints that were right in front of us the entire time. On Kevin's first anniversary, Donald Mustard tweeted the first ever sketch of the cube and ended his tweet with, "Kevin might be gone, but is not forgotten." Now, a lot of us assumed he was just teasing the return of Kevin, but it was impossible, right? I mean, we all watched him explode in Season 6. The OG Kevin was dead, so we all just moved on from this hint. But eventually, after a lot of the community wanted to know what happened to the Chapter 1 map, Epic Games revealed that it was gone forever. Turns out, during the end event, the 0 Point actually got the entire Chapter 1 island and rearranged the entire thing into the Chapter 2 map. So the island we are currently standing on is the Chapter 1 island, just reorganized by the 0 Point. Everything that was on the Season X map was brought over into Chapter 2 and turned into something else, except for the meteor, of course, because, we all know what happened to that. But even though Epic revealed this fact to us over a year ago, no one realized what this meant for Kevin the Cube. And that brings us to Chapter 2, Season 6, which had one of the most mysterious quest lines of the entire chapter. In Season 6, the 0 point was enclosed in a huge tower of stone known as the Spire, and throughout this whole season, we were following a guy named Raz. He was on a mission to learn the Spire's secrets, and he started off by listening to logs left by John Jones, as well as analyzing the crystals. But then things got weird. He became obsessed with finding a Spire artifact and searched everywhere for it. Now eventually, he actually found the Spire artifact, and it corrupted his entire body, turning him into the Glyph Master. And if you fought him at the Spire, you'd actually look close enough to see that the artifact he was looking for this entire time was a shard of a cube. This was the first time we ever saw part of a cube in Chapter 2, and it blew our minds. But it was Raz turning into the Glyph Master that led us into Chapter 2, Season 7. The energy from this corruption lured an alien mothership to the island, and they completely destroyed the Spire, taking over the map and starting a war with the Imagined Order. But while we were all distracted by this, even more hints were being dropped in the background. During the Rift Tour, the aliens scanned our memories, and we could see all the past live events, but there was one memory which it showed for longer than all the others. At least it felt like it, and that was a memory of the cube on the island. Except when we analyzed this, it turned out that this was an image of the cube on the Chapter 2 island. I mean, this blew everyone away, and it was made even more crazy when the Imposters mode was released. In this LTM, it revealed that the Imagined Order actually has a mini version of the cube in its offices where they're trying to learn more about it. But obviously, none of this was even close to as cool as what happened at the end of Season 7. Of course, I'm talking about Operation Skyfire. During this live event, while trying to take down the mothership, we all learned something incredible. It turned out that this huge mothership that was 3 times the size of the island was powered by thousands of cubes. Now, one of these cubes was sent to try and take care of us, but we worked together to reboot it and make it friendly. We nicknamed this guy Beloved and moved on, but another cube we were all focused on was one all the way in the back of the mothership that was actually colored gold. Now, we didn't have enough time to think about it though, because Sloan blew up the ship and sent us all flying down onto the island, including the cubes. And that's what brings us to now, Chapter 2, Season 8, where we have gotten some insane answers about the cubes and even Kevin himself. At the start of the season, the map was filled with mothership crash sites that each had their own cube on them. There were 5 cubes, 1 golden cube, and Blevin could be found near Camp Cod. But there were also thousands of other cubes in the ocean, but it seems that they won't be getting up anytime soon. By the time the second week of Season 8 came around, all of the purple cubes on the map had actually started moving, and the golden cube had moved over 50 times. It was weird. To put it simply, the golden cube started by heading straight to Believer's Beach, where it found a regular cube and actually began connecting to it. Then, after enough energy had been put into the cube, it gave birth to a bunch of new ones, which shocked everyone. I mean, we finally found out how cubes are made. It turned out that the golden cube, or whoever was inside of it, was the creator of all the cubes in existence, and this was how. But if you remember, I brought up Kevolution Energy in this video. We talked about how it was just a cool homage to Kevin. But you might also remember that everything on the Season X island was actually brought over to the Chapter 2 island in Season 1. And guess what? That would also include Kevin the Cube. He was on the island during the end event, and just a few weeks ago in Season 8, something began to arise from Steamy Stacks. Underneath the ground of Kevolution Energy, a force broke out of the power plant and left a gaping hole in the building. Of course, in front of this hole, some of the letters from the sign spelled Kev out. And so just a few yards away from Steamy Stacks, a new cube could be found. Here he was after an insane journey that has lasted over 3 years. Kevin is back on the island. Now naturally, the golden cube headed straight for him and tried to create baby cubes, but nothing happened. And just a few days ago, every single cube on the map reached their destination and arrived at the Aftermath, the center of the Fortnite island. Finally, the golden cube is floating in the sky above it, and the plan was in action. All of the cubes formed together to create the Convergence, a huge area full of cubes, pools of energy, and at the very center of it, the golden cube. But while this golden cube was encased in the Convergence floating high in the sky, we could finally see the Cube Queen. She was inside of the golden cube the whole time, plotting and scheming, and it looks like her plan is only just beginning. She's currently in an orb similar to the Ice King and even has her own cinematic trailer. Her rival on the island has brought new sideways monsters on the map, and she has one goal in mind: to kill us all. There are obviously unanswered questions, but for now we have learned so much about how the cubes work, what their intentions are, and even been able to finish a story of Kevin the Cube. For now, that is the entire timeline of the Fortnite cubes, but I have a feeling this story probably isn't finished. Hit the like button if you guys want to see a part 2 and all of this ends. Thanks so much for watching. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.